It is great to be back here on the Blue Ski Mask Show. I am Brock here with Kurt. And Kurt, I think this is the last one.
It is the last show of the Blue Ski Mask Show. We've lasted quite a long time, but good things must always come to an end.
That's right.
And yeah, here we are, end of the semester. It's been a wild year for both the Lions and the Pistons, and there's not a lot going on, if we can be really honest. So this is probably going to be our most fun show to wrap things out, I'd say. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to that. But without further ado, Brock, let's get right into it.
Let's do it. So the draft, just 9 days away at this point. Next Thursday, depending on when you're listening to this, April 25th is the NFL draft, held in Detroit for the first time ever, is it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which is cool. And I saw they have a mural of Aiden Hutchinson on the side of one of the buildings right outside the draft stage, which I thought was cool. And the Lions are picking. They have 3 picks in the first 2 days. They've got 1 pick in the first round and a pick in the second round, and then another pick early on in the third round, if my math is right there. Let's get into it. Pick 29, Kurt. This is a pick that, a lot of people think they're going either one of 2 ways here. They're going defensive end or defensive line or defensive back, and specifically probably edge rusher or corner. And we have predicted one of each. I've got the Lions. I'll get into this later because we're doing a hot takes segment on the draft, and I'll talk a little bit more about this pick later on. But if the Lions stay at 29, I've got them taking Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama. I think he's a really good player, and he could fit well there in the secondary. And Kurt?
I have the Lions selecting Chop Robinson in the first round at pick 29 from third place University. I don't know. There's things I like about Chop Robinson. There's things I don't like about Chop Robinson. But realistically, I think he fits the mold for what the Lions are trying to do. Of course, Chop Robinson isn't the heaviest guy. He might need to put on some weight ahead of the NFL season. But realistically, I think that's the best case scenario is the Lions land Chop Robinson at pick 29, because I don't even know if he'll be available at pick 29 at this point. Early on into the draft process, I thought for sure he'd be right there for us, but we don't know. Kool-Aid McKinstry, though, probably more likely to be there than Chop Robinson.
Yeah, I do think I agree with your selection. If he's available, I would go with Chop, but I don't know. Most mocks that I look at have him going late teens to early 20s, mid 20s maybe.
Really? Wow.
So at least from what I've looked at, and if I remember correctly, he's there kind of just a few picks before the Lions. I wouldn't be surprised, and like I said, we'll get into this later, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions potentially traded up for him if they like him that much. Let's move on to the Lions' second round pick, and here we both have the Lions taking a player from Michigan, but 2 different players. And I've got him here after going DB in the first round with Kool-Aid. I've got him going to the defensive line, their other area of need, and going with Chris Jenkins, guy from Michigan, played 4 years for the Wolverines, comes in at about 6'3". I want to say he's about 305, so not the heaviest guy, but he's elite in the run defense, and I think he'd be a great pick for them. And then you'd have 2 Michigan guys on that defensive line along with Aiden Hutchinson.
I have the Lions selecting Junior Colson from First Place University at pick 61. Not much else to say besides he fits what the Lions do on defense, but he has the potential to grow, I think, in areas that the Lions don't really solve that well, in my opinion. So I know Junior Colson defends the run pretty well, but he has an opportunity to grow to also defend the pass as a linebacker. And if we can be honest, the Lions don't have really anybody on that front seven who can effectively defend a pass. So I think if Junior Colson, again, if he's available, who knows if he even will be, I think he's the pick at 61.
Yeah, I could see it. It's definitely a possibility. Let's move on to pick 73, which that's a third round pick, isn't it? It's got to be.
Early third round.
Early third, yeah. You've got 2 rounds of 32, so it puts you at 64 plus. Don't they do like compensatory picks or something?
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it. They do some weird things.
And there's like teams who have their picks revoked and stuff.
Right. I don't understand everything about it, but this is an early third round pick for the Lions here, just 12 spots after their second round pick. And it's so hard to predict this kind of stuff. This is where it really gets almost impossible. I've got them going wide receiver just because I think they need a little bit more depth there, along with Amon-Ra and Josh Reynolds basically sold in the NFC Championship game. They need more consistency, I think, at that position. I think they go and grab a guy called Bub Means from Pittsburgh, and I gotta be honest, I have never watched him play, but he's there at wide receiver in the third round, and I think the Lions go and grab him.
Fair enough. I have the Lions taking Dominic Puny from Western Kentucky. He's an offensive guard. And don't be fooled by his last name. This guy is massive. This guy, I think, is around like 340 to 350 in the weight department. And I think if you get another offensive guard to pair with that O-line, again, the Lions O-line is elite as it stands. But if you get another body to put in there, then you do no harm. And Puny can also rotate around the O-line. He can't play, tackle. But if you want him on the left side, if you want him on the right side, if you want him playing center, he can do those things from what I've seen. So I think he's the easy pick for me in the scenario that I have going. And because we know the Lions have, Amon-Ra was a 5th round pick. And I feel like the Lions, if they go wide receiver, take one very early or take one very late.
Yeah.
So I think offensive guard is the pick for me in the 3rd round.
I could definitely see it. That Brad Holmes likes to build from the inside out. He likes to establish the offensive and defensive lines and then work his way out. They lost Jonah Jackson in the offseason. I could definitely see that, them going for the offensive line. They're going to need either a starter there or some more depth in case people get hurt. So I think that'd be a good pick there out of Western Kentucky for the Lions. So let's move into next season after the draft. The draft is over at this point. Lions are looking to defend their NFC North title and potentially win the NFC title, the NFC conference, and go to the Super Bowl. I think that's kind of the expectation from a lot of fans this year. The schedule hasn't been, or the official schedule hasn't been released yet, but we do know the Lions' opponents, and it's the 11th toughest slate of opponents in the NFL. And last year, the Lions finished 12-5 with the 20th toughest schedule. So it's going to get tougher.
It is, and this is what we kind of expected, right? And I will say that I think our division opponents are getting better. Yep. Maybe not the Vikings, but to be fair, we played the Vikings at their very lowest last year. The Vikings were a solid team to start the year, I remember. But, I mean, Josh Dobbs, I don't even remember who the QB was after Josh Dobbs had that terrible game. But with what we saw last season, I don't think there's much we can do in the draft at this point to improve the team, like enough, I guess, to shift a lot of stuff. So I will say 11-6, another wild card appearance, and watch out for the Packers because I think they have a chance to take the division.
The Packers?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Wow. That would be interesting. Do you at 11-6, do you think the Lions end up winning the division, or do you think that's a wild card berth?
I think it's a wild card.
Okay.
For sure. But it wouldn't shock me if both the Lions and the Packers finished with the same record. And I might sound crazy for saying that, but the Packers dominated us in a game last year on Thanksgiving, and they got better, like without a doubt, this offseason. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out, but I'm worried about the Packers. That's it. I'm just worried.
Here's where I'm at. I have written that the Lions will go 10-6-1. And that would be a wild card. And they'd make the playoffs. I've changed my mind. I wrote this probably not even 5 hours ago, and I've already changed my mind. I'll say the Lions go 11-5-1, and they win the division again at 11-5-1. I'm not as worried about the Packers as I think you are. I'm more concerned about Minnesota if they do what I think they're going to do in the draft.
Oh, no.
We'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, I think the Lions go back to back. I think they win the NFC North again, but I do think early prediction is they bow out early in the playoffs there, and don't quite fulfill the hopes and dreams that all Lions fans have for this year's team. I just think it's really hard to get back to the NFC Championship game for a second year in a row, and this time you'd have to win it. I think the only way that happens is if the Lions have some crazy season, earn the 1 seed in the NFC, and then, have home field advantage throughout the whole playoffs up until the Super Bowl. I think that's the only way that happens. Let's talk about J.J. McCarthy.
Let's do it.
We have slightly differing opinions, I think, on him as a prospect. And so let's get into it. This guy, national championship winning quarterback, and was a 5-star coming out of high school. But what makes him so polarizing is that Michigan hardly ever, I don't want to say hardly ever, but Michigan didn't use him in a way that most quarterbacks that are drafted in the top 5 are used. Like, you see Caleb Williams, you see Heisman winner, you see Jaden Daniels, Heisman winner, you see Drake May, had Heisman level stats, you see Bryce Young, Heisman winner, I'm pretty sure, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, all these guys. They put up these incredible numbers. But J.J. McCarthy just never did that in college. All he cared about was winning football games, and Michigan did that. And here we are in the draft now, and people are deciding whether or not he's the quarterback of the future. And I think, Kurt, that's what makes him so polarizing.
I agree. And I've compiled a list of things that I think McCarthy has going for him and things McCarthy does not have going for him. And I'm going to just get this out of the way because I know you've watched probably 10 times the amount of J.J. McCarthy that I've watched. So we're going to get right into this list. J.J. McCarthy has a never-before-seen ritual as a QB. Meditation. Right? So I think of Warren Moon with his super long fingernails. J.J. McCarthy has some, I wouldn't say meditation's weird, but he has something about him that's unique that he does. So that is a plus. Also, he does not go by his first name technically. I think his name is what, James Johnson or something?
Jonathan James.
Okay, whatever. Jonathan James. Matthew Stafford is John Stafford. Trevor Lawrence is William Lawrence.
Really?
Geno Smith is Eugene Smith.
Huh.
J.J. McCarthy is Jonathan James McCarthy. And that is a plus. That's a good thing.
All right.
His stock has risen for good reasons, right? I think last year, I think of Anthony Richardson, his stock rising, and we all knew Anthony Richardson was a stud. Then I think of Will Levis's stock rising, and everyone's like, why? I don't think anyone's asking why J.J. McCarthy's stock is rising, at least compared to Will Levis. And J.J. McCarthy is going to go to a more complete team than, let me think. You can say whoever you want as the top 3 QBs in this class. I don't think J.J. McCarthy is going to get drafted in the top 3. But if he goes to the Vikings, if he goes to the Broncos, they're in a better state than the Bears, than the Commanders.
Yep.
then the Patriots.
Yep.
So that's a plus. And he has not won a Heisman. And we had this discussion in the car on our way to, I think, Pittsburgh,
Maybe.
where there's only there's only been 2 Heisman winning QBs to win a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you've not won a Heisman, the odds are stacked in your favor. So
that's a pretty incredible stat, isn't it?
it is. It's really shocking too.
It is. It really is. But yeah, I think it's a good list. The only thing I would say is that in my opinion, yes, his stock has risen, but it's almost a discredit to him to say that because his stock has always been high. I just think now that people are watching the film and really diving in on who he is as a prospect, I think now people are starting to realize, okay, this guy's really good. He's been really good, and his stock, at least for me and anyone else who's watched Michigan, his stock has always been that high. But now that the season's over, there's no football happening, and people are watching the highlights and the plays in preparation for the draft. I think only now is his stock technically, if you want to call it rising, it's rising. Let's get into your list of things that he doesn't have going for him.
And I'll say this, the list is shorter than the things he does have going for him. Obviously, U of M ran the ball a lot last year. Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards. I mean, I don't think U of M has the run they have without those 2 players, even with J.J. McCarthy under center. So you have to think, if J.J. McCarthy is this polarizing prospect, why wasn't he throwing the ball more? And I forget what game it was, but there was a game in the second half. J.J. McCarthy did not even throw the ball.
Penn State.
Yep. Right. Which is insane to think about. And also, J.J. McCarthy is slightly cringe, in my opinion. Wearing a smiley face on, I think it was his pro day. Nobody cares.
Oh, yeah. He does that for every game. You know why he does that?
Why?
In high school, they lost a game. And he only lost like 2 games in high school, I think, his entire high school career. They lost a game in high school, and after the game, he was signing autographs and talking to fans, things like that. And this little girl came up to him, and he was talking with her and signing stuff, whatever. And she grabbed the Sharpie or whatever and drew a smiley face on his hand after the loss. And he now uses that as a way to just remember it's a football game. Like, let's have some fun.
All right. So. I recall my statement. I'm putting that on the things he has going for him list. I did not do my due diligence research. I apologize. He needs to hit the weight room. I think everyone can agree on that.
Yeah, he did. During the off season, he played at about 200, if I remember right, during the season, and then weighed in at about 220.
Really?
For the combine. So he's put on some weight.
The thing I was looking at has him listed still around 200. And if you look at every other prospect in this draft, at least like top QB prospects, you know, they're all like 210 to 220 in that range. And we know McCarthy can run the ball. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the only concern as to why you want to put on that weight.
Yep.
And then his ball placement can be improved at times.
I would agree.
But those are like really the only, from watching, I'm not like no NFL scout, right? But from watching him play, those are the 2 things that stick out to me the most, I'd say. Yeah.
Really good list, especially for ball placement, I would say outside the numbers. Anything like inside the numbers in the middle of the field, he's money. But when it gets to that outer part of the field where he's got to stretch it out a little bit, I think that's where he gets a little bit off target. So he's so interesting to me. And he's local, so we talk about him, and I do think he's probably this year's most polarizing prospect. I think there are people like myself and others that believe he should go in the top 3 or top 5, and there are other people out there that don't believe he should be a first-round pick. So it is what it is, and it'll all have to get sorted out once he gets to the NFL. Let's now move into hot takes, and Kurt, yours starts with something in relation to J.J. McCarthy.
It does. I have listed here either Drake May or J.J. McCarthy. They don't hear their name called until day 2 of the draft, and at least one of Bo Nix or Michael Penix gets drafted ahead of them. I'm leaning towards it being Drake May, but I don't know. Because I don't like Drake May as a prospect. But
neither do I.
You know, you have to think there's so many QB needy teams in this draft, but I feel like one of those teams likes Bo Nix or Michael Penix more than Drake May. And yeah, I'm not on a scale of 1 to 10. I am like a 5 out of 10 on confidence on that.
Okay.
I'm not too confident on that one.
All right. My first one here, and I think we have six each. My first one here is that I'm not sure how hot this is because I'd have to go back and look at recent drafts, but 2 teams trade out of the top 10. So 2 teams that are currently in the top 10 trade out and move back. And I'd bet you one of them is going to be the Cardinals. I think they're bound to make a trade unless they want to go and grab Marvin Harrison Jr., but how much is he really going to help you when you have basically no one else on offense? And I don't know who the other team would be, but I do think another one's going to drop. And I think someone's going to have to trade up for a quarterback. I think, after the top 3, the so-called top 3 in Caleb Williams and Drake May and Jaden Daniels, there's almost like a little bit of a drop-off. And I think that not a drop-off, but like, you just get the sense that a team's going to trade up into the top 10 after those 3 to go grab whether it's McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, whoever it may be. So that's my first one. 2 teams trade out of the top 10.
I can see that happening. And I have here a team trades into the top 10, but takes a receiver and not a quarterback, which kind of aligns with what you just said. Yep. Because if I'm a team moving up to 4, I'm probably moving up there to get the next generational wide receiver, Marv Harrison Jr., or even Malik Nabers or Rome Odunze. I think there's teams that will be looking to trade up to get either of them too. So I'm pretty confident in that one happening.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I've got one here. Back to Michigan a little bit. Michigan defensive back Mikey Sainristil gets selected in the first round. This is a guy that I love. He is the most dog of like all the dogs there could possibly be. He's got the most, like the highest level of dog meter. He's 5'10", $182, but this dude's just an incredible football player. So smart, so fundamentally sound. I think if Kool-Aid McKinstry isn't available, and maybe even if he is, I would not be shocked at all to see the Lions grab him at 29. I think he's that good, and I think it'd be a great pick.
Interesting. Up next, I have somebody reaches on Keon Coleman, who is a wide receiver from Florida State, and he ends up being a complete bust in the NFL. I am 10 out of 10 confidence on this.
10 out of 10?
Yes.
Wow.
I am not a big believer in Keon Coleman. I hate like seeing mock drafts and seeing how high he goes. And
how high do they have him going normally?
I think I've seen stuff like late first round and then all around the second.
Wow.
And no, get Keon Coleman out of here. He's a boomer bust wide receiver. And what happens with these type of wide receivers? They bust. Yep. And I don't know. He's given me kind of not the same level, but some Kevin White vibes, I guess. If any of you remember Kevin White in terms of the hype. And
I remember that a little bit.
So
he came out of West Virginia, was it? If I remember right, he was a stud.
He was,
and he was very highly touted coming out of college. I think it was West Virginia.
It was West Virginia.
What was that? 2017?
Yes, I think 2017 is on the nose.
Yeah.
2015.
2015
draft. Yes. Okay.
So 9 years ago. Wow. Yeah. Boomer bust. Those guys just, in my opinion, and I agree with you, it never really seems to work out. So that wouldn't shock me at all. This one that I have, this next one, kind of goes right in line with your first one, except for I am whittling it down to being Drake May. J.J. McCarthy's not going to drop out of the first round. It's going to be Drake May. He falls out of the first round, and since he accepted that draft invitation to be there in person in Detroit, which did you see only 13 guys did?
Only 13?
Yeah, there's only going to be 13 guys there.
There were, if my memory serves correctly, there was more people at the WNBA draft.
Oh, yeah.
Than there will be.
I bet so.
Wow.
Yep.
Really? So 13.
he's one of 13 guys there. He's going to be the only one that drops out of the first round, and ESPN is just going to kill him on TV after every pick. Just like Will Levis, was that last year or 2 years ago?
Last year.
Last year.
Everybody loves a good draft day slide. Mm-hmm. We can all admit it.
Yep. After every pick, it's going to be Drake May. When is Drake May going to hear his name called? And then pick 32 is going to come. The Chiefs are going to pick, and it's obviously not going to be Drake May. And he's going to go home without having been drafted.
Womp womp. Anyways, I have here that somebody will draft a running back way too high, and they will have a terrible rookie season. And this is probably the worst running back class we've seen in years.
Yep.
And I know you're a Michigan guy, Brock, but I think Blake Corum will be out of the league in 3 years or less. Future CFL star, more than likely. What, Blake Corum is, how tall is he? Like 5'9"?
5'8", I think.
5'8". Kind of, he reminds me of Gus Edwards, and he's 5'8". I just don't see Blake Corum translating to the NFL.
Yeah, I can somewhat agree with that. I mean, he's 22 years old, I think, and he just blew out his knee a year and a half ago, and he had to recover from that. And I just and even still, if he didn't get injured, the shelf life of these running backs is decreasing so much. Like, these guys just don't last at all anymore. That they're in the league for maybe 5 years and then they're gone, with a few exceptions. So I could see it. You know, I love Blake Corum, but having blown out your knee a year and a half ago and already being 22 years old, it might be tough for him to find his footing there in the NFL. But I'd love to see him work it out with some team, whoever it may be. I think it's going to be the Ravens or the Chargers. Yeah,
and again, he's probably like a debate for being the best running back in the draft.
Yeah.
Like, without a doubt.
Yep.
You have Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson, Jalen Wright, Blake Corum. I mean, I don't know. Well, we've seen a lot of running backs who are short who have been, oh, he's short, he'll never work out, who have worked. I mean, Devon A. Kane just had a phenomenal rookie season. Obviously a different player than Blake Corum, but who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Moving on here, I alluded to this one earlier. The Lions trade pick 29. They either go up for Chop Robinson into the early 20s, maybe trade up 5, 6, or 7 picks, go grab Chop, or if they don't like what they can get in return for that pick, they trade back and get more picks. I don't think they make a selection there at 29. But that does kind of contradict my comment about saying we're still earlier, but oh well.
Right. And I will add, I think if anything, they trade up because the draft is in Detroit, and you got to bring someone out who's going to be a future Detroit Lion on night one, in my opinion. It's like something you have to do.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
Next up, I have Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo. Will be a bust. Because he goes to Toledo, he plays cornerback. And I think Nate Wiggins will be a Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate.
Wow.
And is seen as the best rookie corner by the end of next season.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
That's
one I think where we differ a little bit. If I'd almost flip that around.
Really?
Honestly, in my opinion, yeah. I would say Quinyon Mitchell is going to be the star and Nate Wiggins is going to be the bust. But that's the beauty of the NFL draft. You just never know.
Right.
Until it happens.
Exactly.
Here's a good one. Maserati Marvin Harrison Jr. will not be the first wide receiver selected. He will not be the first wide receiver selected.
Really? What makes you say that? I'm curious.
I just think something crazy is going to happen where someone does some weird trade with the Cardinals, because I think he if no one trades, he will end up going to the Cardinals at 4. But I think a team's going to trade into the top 4 and take McCarthy or whoever it is, a quarterback, and Harrison's going to slide, and every other receiver is going to slide. Odunze, Neighbors, all them, and a team is going to eventually come up to the board, and he's just not going to be the top receiver on their list. I think either Odunze or Neighbors is going to be picked ahead of him. I just do.
I can actually, now that I've thought about it, I can see that happening, because you have to think a lot of teams probably weren't even interested in Marv because he's been chalked up as probably the best player in this draft, easily going top 5. So if I'm a team at like 11 or 12 and Marv is still there, but so is Roma Dunze, maybe I go Roma Dunze.
Yeah.
Right? So that could happen. That could happen. And my last hot take, the Detroit Hollywood sign is torn down by the end of the draft.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
How disgusting.
How shameful to put that up in our state.
I'm sure you saw the renderings.
I did.
Oh.
Those AI images of this giant sign.
Yeah, just massive, like right up on top of a hill there, right next to the freeway.
Casting a shadow over these tiny cars.
Yep.
And now the cars are bigger than the sign. Right?
It's such a disgrace. And the letters are way too far apart, and they're just way too small. It's so gross.
It is.
I hope that comes to fruition. That'd be great. And I heard they spent $400,000 on it too. $400,000 for a puny little sign that people are going to maybe see as they drive into Detroit for the draft. So dumb.
I agree.
Here's my last one. And this is my favorite. This is the hottest of the hot. J.J. McCarthy gets selected by the Minnesota Vikings, and the Vikings go to the Super Bowl. That's my take. I said it when I was watching this past Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Niners. I said McCarthy's going to the Vikings, and the Vikings are going to the Super Bowl. The Vikings may not. I don't even think the Vikings win the division, to be honest. I think, like I said, the Lions go back-to-back. The Vikings slide in as a wild card at like 9-7 or 10-6. Or I'm sorry, I'm still thinking they're playing 16 games. They'd be 9-8. 9-8 or 10-7. They slide in as the wild card team. Make a run to the Super Bowl. They don't win it, but they're there. They lose to the Chiefs or Bengals, Bills, whoever it may be. The AFC is pretty loaded. So that's my hottest hot take.
I don't even have a rebuttal. I'm not even going to try to convince you otherwise, because you've been so set on this happening for so long.
It's going to happen. You all just wait and see. That wraps it up for the NFL draft coverage. Again, 9 days away. April 25th, Thursday night, is round 1, followed by days 2 and 3 on the 26th and 27th. Kurt, the Pistons finished 14-68, the worst record in franchise history. Where on earth do they even go after this?
I would probably go to the telephone and call up some new general managers. But I'm not in charge of those decisions. So, well, there was some news today that came out where the Pistons are looking for a new head of basketball operations, which would be essentially Troy Weaver's boss. But Troy Weaver will still stay in place as general manager for now. So after having the worst season in franchise history, a franchise history that spans nearly 80 years, I think, you have your worst record. You have a general manager who has been running your team for 4 years. The most games he's ever won is like 20 in those 4 years in a season. Why does this guy still have a job? Like, why? How does that make any sense? I don't get it. I really don't. And the cherry on top is the highlight of this entire season was Malachi Flynn dropping 50 points. That is the best thing that happened for the Pistons all season, without a doubt in my mind. And how disappointing is it to say that?
Yeah.
If you told me before the season started the best part about the season was Malachi Flynn dropping 50 points, I would look at you funny, because Malachi Flynn wasn't even on the team yet. So, yeah, we wanted a raw reaction. That's my raw reaction. But I'll calm down. Malachi Flynn, first Piston since Sadiq Bey, not on the team anymore, to drop 50 points. Second most points from a bench player in a game ever, behind Jamal Crawford, who had 51, I think in like 2019.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Insanely crazy. And what did Malachi Flynn do in his next game, coming off a 50-point performance?
Surely he had like 30, right?
Surely
30?
Surely he, had a Flynn sanity run. No. He had 3 points against the Memphis Injuries. And those 3 points came from the free throw line. He shot 0 for 12 against a Memphis Grizzlies team who we've talked about numerous times has been injured all year. The entire team. All their starters have been injured.
How embarrassing. Like, you play 82 games and your former number one, the highlight of your entire season, which was awful to begin with, the highlight of the whole season is that a player who wasn't even on the team to begin with dropped 50 points and followed it up with a 3-point night where he didn't make a field goal. It has nothing to do with the former number 1 overall pick. It has nothing to do with the former number 4 overall pick or any of the millions of lottery picks that you've had in the last 5 years. No, it's Malachi Flynn who came off the bench and just happened to blow up for 51. I just can't even begin to fathom how bad this franchise is. It's unbelievable.
Just disgusting.
And then they finished the season, game 82, trying to go into the offseason with a win, maybe take some momentum into the offseason. No. They play the Spurs, who are right there in terms of they're just down there at the bottom of the NBA. They're awful. And the Spurs rest their starters, and the Pistons kind of do the same. Ivy played, and
Ivy was, I think, the only starter who played, but still,
and they go out excuse. They go out and lose by 28.
No excuse for that. And I'll say this: in a game where like Jaden Ivey could have went totally nuclear, right? Had a 30-point game, 40-point game. He had 13 points. He shot 5 for 13. He took as many shots as many points as he had. And who had the best game? James Wiseman had 21 and 17.
You can't make it up. You can't make it up. They gave up. They gave. I mean, there's nothing to play for at that point in the season. But they just gave up. They just gave up on the team, man. It's sad, and it's just embarrassing. It's how many years has it been since they made the playoffs? 8 now? 7 or 8?
I think. Yeah.
And the one time they did make it to the playoffs, they got swept, right? By the Cavs or something?
It was, I think they went in 2018 or 2019 against the Cavs. Or no, it was the Bucks. I get it mixed up because it's been so long. The last 2 times they've been to the playoffs, they've gotten swept. And it was either the Bucks or the Cavs.
Yeah.
And before that, they missed the playoffs for a long stretch leading back to like 2008 or 2009 when they were in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That was the last time they won a playoff game, if I remember right. Was 2008 or 9.
Yeah, 2000s. It's gross.
It is. It really is. And here we are going to be going into 2024-2025 season with no identity, no direction, no plan of how to bring this team back.
Exactly. And there's only one person on this team who is even like he's the guy, and that's Cade. Everyone else could be traded.
Yep.
Everyone else could be gone by the start of next season, and it really wouldn't surprise me, especially if we get a new general manager. But like, this is ridiculous. Cade is going into year 4 next season. We've had 3 years to build around Cade Cunningham now, and we have failed to even give him a shred of help. And here we are, once again, at the end of the season with the worst record. This is the 2nd season in a row. We're going to get screwed in the lottery. A lottery that doesn't matter anyway. Doesn't matter anyways, right? But okay, let's lighten the mood a little bit, Brock. I have 2 articles I pulled up on my laptop right now that I wrote before the start of the season that talked about the Pistons, so we're going to have a good laugh.
Okay.
So for the Oakland Post, I wrote a Detroit Pistons preview article. This is what I wrote, and I quote, "Expect the Pistons to improve their record this season." Did not happen.
Nope.
Although they likely won't finish as the worst team in the league again.
They did.
They will still be at the bottom of the barrel in the Eastern Conference.
You got that right. They finished at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, true. But just, there was so much hope heading into this season, and they completely blew it apart.
Yep.
And I have another article pulled up called "One Man's Trash, Another Man's Treasure," which was a story I wrote about Monty Williams signing with the Pistons when I was blogging about the NBA. Let me see if I can find it.
I've heard rumors that he may not have total job security. He'll probably be retained and head into next season, but I've heard that he's going to be on like the hottest of hot seats, and he should be. You can't coach a 14-68 team and return next season with just total assurance that you're going to keep your job. No way.
Right, but I will say I think Monty is safe for next season. I think they'll give him another year, but I don't know. I have so many thoughts about what's happening, and they change like every 5 minutes. But in this article I have pulled up, I'll read what I wrote, and I quote, "What Williams brings to the table as a head coach makes this the most ideal hire for the Detroit Pistons. Williams completely turned around the culture of the Phoenix Suns when he took over as head coach in 2019. Which I feel like that paragraph has aged half okay, right? Because he definitely turned the Suns around. But,
yeah. Took them to the finals.
Right. Here we are, and no, Monty Williams didn't do anything. Let me see here. With his proven track record of transforming teams and maximizing player potential, which he did not do at all, Monty Williams is poised to be the catalyst that turns another man's trash into the Pistons' treasure." I wish I never read that over again, but I did. For you, Brock.
Yeah, I mean, that's... I don't even know what to say.
Just terrible. So bad. And the Pistons fans were so excited that we hired Monty Williams, including me.
Yeah.
I was very excited.
Yeah.
But here we are, end of the season. We can look forward to next season, and if the Pistons are looking to hire a general manager, I do have my resume available. And this is what I'm going to do as general manager. First, okay, let me rephrase that. This is what the Pistons should do. First, they have to fire Troy Weaver.
Yep.
Ultra
agreed.
bum Troy Weaver. Then we are going to trade Jaden Ivey for a veteran wing. So Zach LaVine, Kyle Kuzma, maybe even Mikal Bridges. We're drafting Reed Shepherd if we keep our pick.
Jack Golke's son.
Jack Golke's son, Reed Shepherd, because Reed Shepherd is the safest player to draft this year. We're going to force Asor Thompson to shoot minimum 1,000 threes a day. And we're going to continue to experiment with Jalen Duren's ball handling ability if he hasn't already been traded. And we are going to keep Cade Cunningham healthy at all costs. Now,
this next bullet point is the best one on this entire list.
This is what we're going to do. Right? We traded Jaden Ivey for, we'll say, Kyle Kuzma. So we replaced Jaden Ivey with Reed Shepherd. Guys, we still need a forward. And what do? We're drafting Bronny James at pick 53 to force LeBron to Detroit.
Yes.
And
yes.
Look, I think LeBron has a player option, so he technically could be a free agent this summer. The Lakers have pick 55. Nobody in this draft is thinking about Bronny James, except for me, Pistons general manager. We're drafting Bronny James. If he doesn't work out, who cares? We wasted pick 53.
Yep.
Troy Weaver's wasted plenty of second-round picks.
Yep.
I can waste pick 53. We're getting Bronny James to Detroit. He'll be our third-string point guard behind Marcus Sasser and Cade Cunningham. LeBron James, get ready to play power forward. We're rolling out next year. Cade Cunningham, Reed Shepherd, Kyle Kuzma, LeBron James, Jalen Duren.
Yep.
And we are going to the playoffs and winning some games.
Yep.
That's what we're doing.
I could not possibly agree more with drafting Bronny James at 53. This goes back to, we talked about it last week. Would you rather have Bronny James or Caitlin Clark?
I'd still rather have Caitlin Clark.
I think that's bizarre. But Bronny James is not that good at basketball. If he was not LeBron James' son, he would not be drafted this year, period. But he's going to be drafted because LeBron James has said multiple times he wants to play with his son. And I think if you draft him at 53, LeBron signs with the Pistons the next day. And all of a sudden, you've got a top 5 player in the league.
Arguably, but still one of the greatest basketball players of all time.
And you know what?
Slowed down.
And you know what else LeBron does? LeBron sells tickets.
Also true.
LeBron gets people excited about the team.
If LeBron came to Detroit, LCA would be sold out the minute tickets dropped.
Absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
Detroit fans already love basketball. They already love the Pistons. I think the Pistons were like middle of the road in attendance, with having the worst season ever.
Yep.
They were middle of the road in attendance. You bring in LeBron.
Oh, yeah.
You bring in the hometown kid, Kyle Kuzma.
You're selling out every game.
Oh, yeah. It's over.
Yep. I could not agree with that more, and I think that 100% needs to be the direction that they go. Whoever it is, whether it's Troy Weaver or whether it's some other GM, that has to be the only option.
Right. And in case we haven't done it already, we're going to fire Troy Weaver again if he hasn't been fired. And we will give Monty Williams another season as head coach, but he is on the hottest seat imaginable.
I agree.
Hottest seat in the world. Like 90 degrees Fahrenheit seat. That is what Monty Williams is sitting on. And look, I really like Monty Williams as a coach, but there's no excuse to have there's like no fathomable excuse. We didn't deal with injuries like the Grizzlies did. I mean, we did, but not like Ja Morant missing the whole season. Cade Cunningham played 60-something games. All of our what were supposed to be our top players on this team did not miss a ton of time. And here we are. We did not improve. We got worse.
On a recent podcast, Draymond Green called the play-in tournament the best thing ever created. And it starts tonight. Draymond says it's the best thing ever created, and here we go. It starts tonight. I think, are all 4 games tonight? Or do they got 2 tonight, 2 tomorrow?
I want to say that there's 2 tonight and 2 tomorrow. Yes, so the Lakers and Pelicans play tonight, and the Warriors and Kings play tonight. And then tomorrow will be the Eastern stuff.
I see.
And then Thursday and Friday, I think, are those final games to determine who's in and who's not.
Yeah. So let's get into our predictions here. We have the Lakers against the Pelicans, like you said, and then you've got on the west, other side of the West, you got the Warriors and the Kings. And
so you want me to? I'll break it down.
Okay.
So the play-in tournament is the 7th through 10 seeds they play. So 7, 8, 9, 10. Mm-hmm. The 7 and 8 seed will play to determine who gets the 7th seed. The loser of that game will play the winner of the 10th and 9th seed game to determine who gets the 8th seed. For those of you who don't know,
right?
Because it is somewhat confusing for if you don't know everything about it. So I guess I'll just fire off my picks first. I think the Lakers beat the Pelicans and win that 7th seed, but I think the Pelicans defeat whoever it is, the Kings or the Warriors. I don't care. Those aren't playoff teams to me, and they slide in at that 8th seed. And then I have the Heat beating, I believe, the 76ers. Playoff Jimmy returns. They get that 7th seed. And then, obviously, you can't have the playoffs without Joel Embiid. They round out the 8th seed. They beat, I think, the Hawks and the Bulls.
Yeah.
Who cares? Two teams who don't even deserve to be playing this late into the season.
I totally agree. I am going to go in a similar route here in the West. I've got the Pelicans beating the Lakers tonight, and then the Kings beating the Warriors, and then beating the Lakers. So you've got the Pelicans as the 7 seed playing the Nuggets, and then the Kings as the 8 seed playing the Thunder. And in the East, I've got the same 2 teams as Kurt, the 76ers and the Heat, but just different seeds. I think the 76ers win tonight against the Heat, but then the Heat bounce back with a win over, like you said, who cares, the Bulls or the Hawks. I'd have to look at the standings, but and I don't know if this is true about either of those teams, but if you don't have a winning record in any sport, you shouldn't be allowed into the postseason.
I can see that, and I'll pull it up right now. The Hawks are 36-46.
Yeah, they 10 games under.
The Bulls are 39-43.
Oh, they should both be gone. That's a disgrace.
Yeah.
You can't be 10 games under 500 and be in the playoffs.
I will say this. The play-in has shifted a lot of stuff in the wrong way, but I think last season it was very magical because we saw 2 teams go to the conference. We saw the Heat and the Lakers.
Yeah,
2 play-in teams make the conference finals, but it also raises the question, if now that you can win 36 games and still have a chance to make the playoffs, why does the regular season matter at all?
Yeah.
You get those 36 wins, you can check out.
Yep.
So it's a weird thing.
Yeah.
But all right, so we have our playoff bracket set up essentially. I'm going to start with the West. OKC beats the Pelicans in 6, pending if Zion Williamson wants to show up for work that day. The Clippers easily handle the Mavs in 6, and the T-Wolves will beat the Suns, who are frauds, in 6, and the Nuggets will beat the Lakers in 4 games because the Lakers suck, and they did it last year. So, yeah, I think that, if I'm correct, I think that's all chalk for me in the West, but in the East, this is where things get pretty good. The Celtics are going to beat the 76ers in 6 games. The Magic will beat the Cavs in 7 games. The Bucks are going to beat the Pacers in 6, and the Heat, the Miami Heat, are going to beat the Knicks in 7 games.
Really?
And what's really interesting is, in the event that the Heat get that 7th seed, they will have a chance to have the same route to the NBA Finals. But, yeah, they'll have the Knicks, they could play the Bucks, and they could play the Celtics all over again.
Wow.
And completely embarrass all of them again. And I really hope that happens, which just spoiled my whole bracket, but I'll let you get into it.
That'd be incredible. Here's what I have. I've got the Thunder, the 1 seed Thunder over Sacramento in 6. I think Luka Doncic just takes over against the Clippers, beats them in 6. I love Luka Doncic. He's my favorite player in the NBA. I don't watch much of the NBA, but he's my favorite player. We've got Minnesota over Phoenix in 7, and then Denver over New Orleans in 5. That's all chalk except for Dallas.
I think
Dallas over LA. And then moving over to the East, top seed Boston beats Miami in 5. And I loved your Magic pick. That's great. I've never been more confident about any of these picks other than this one.
It was easy. It was so easy.
The Orlando Magic are going to beat the Cavs in 7 games. You can book that right now. The Pacers are going to beat the Bucks in 5. I heard today that Giannis is going to be out for the start of the playoffs, which that's going to hurt him a lot. So I've got the Pacers over the Bucks in 5, and then I've got the Knicks over the Sixers in 5. So 1 seed, 5 seed, 6 seed, and then the 2 seed, all advancing there in the East.
In the second round, in the Western Conference, the Thunder will beat the Clippers in 7. A matchup that really determines who won the Paul George trade, and it will be the Thunder. Then I have the Nuggets over the T-Wolves in 6. I like the T-Wolves. I like what they've done, but Nikola Jokic is a different animal. If I could call him an animal, I'd call him a horse, and that horse is going to win in 6. In the East, the Celtics will, they'll put the Magic down gently in 5. I think playoff Tatum might show up in one of those games and lose them the game. And then the Heat are going to beat the Bucks in 7.
Wow. Really, you're really high on the Heat again, huh, Jimmy Butler?
Here's the issue. Playoff Jimmy, he's going to show up each year. So you have to factor that into what the Heat are. But it's also the Heat are playing these same matchups that they did last year, and you can argue that maybe besides the Knicks, these teams got worse, except for the Celtics.
Could be.
But the Bucks might still be without Giannis. And Doc Rivers is their head coach. Doc Rivers? No. Doc Rivers, you are not making a conference finals, but Eric Spoelstra will.
Interesting. All right. I'll head back to the West here, where Dallas, Luka Doncic, is still... He's going to average 40 in these playoffs.
He might. He really might.
He is going to beat the Thunder in 6. The Thunder are really good. I just think they're too young to make a run at this point. They have a very bright future and will probably be in the finals within 3 years, in my opinion. Yeah, that was so funny. And then we've got Denver over Minnesota in 5. And back in the East, I've got 2 sweeps here. I've got Boston sweeping the Magic. The Magic are kind of similar to the Thunder. They're a really young team that has a lot of young talent and a bright future. I just don't think they're going to be able to compete with Boston. And then the Knicks sweep the Pacers. So 2 sweeps in the Eastern Conference to set up a Celtics versus Knicks Eastern Conference Finals.
Which would be really fun to watch.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter because we got Celtics versus Heat in my scenario. And the Celtics do win in 7, I think, because if there was a year for the Celtics to win, this is the year. There's no more excuses for you not to win an NBA Finals. I said this earlier to one of my friends. The Celtics have probably the most stacked lineup since the Kevin Durant Warriors. And there's no excuse. You've won the most games in the NBA. You have a 1 through 5 that is just stupidly insane. It's time to go to the finals. And meeting them in the finals will be the Denver Nuggets, who will beat the Thunder in 6 games. Because you're not stopping Jokic. You're too young to.
Yeah. Totally agree. I've got Denver beating Dallas in 5. Luke is going to be dominant, but they're going to be able to shut him down. Denver's just really, really, really solid. And then Boston beats New York in 6, setting up the same finals as you, Denver versus Boston. And we both have it going 7 games.
We do. And I have the Celtics winning. And I'll let you give your pick.
Yeah, I've got the Nuggets. They go back to back. I think Jokic is just too good, and they're going to turn into maybe the start of a dynasty here. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Nuggets go back to back in 7. Nothing better than Game 7. I hope it comes down to a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. That'd be great.
And to be fair, or to make it clear, I guess, I want the Nuggets to win. I want anybody but the Celtics to win. But it's hard not to pick against them. That's been my whole take on this playoff run. But up next for the Pistons, the NBA Draft Lottery. That is going to be the most important day to look forward to as a Pistons fan, if you are one after this season. So the Pistons have officially finished with the worst record in the league, which means they will have the best odds for the number 1 overall pick. And that is tied with the Washington Wizards, of course. But because the Trailblazers and the Spurs have also tied, this is the first time since the new lottery odds that only 2 teams have the best odds and not 3.
Wow.
Which is really weird. I never thought this could happen. So I guess that's a good sign for the Pistons. But we have to remember the Pistons can still drop to pick 5. It happened last year. We wanted Wembanyama. We got Ausar Thompson. So the full odds for the Pistons is they have a 14% chance for the number 1 overall pick, a 13.4% chance for number 2, 12.7% chance for number 3, 12% chance for number 4, and a 47.9% chance for number 5. So
that's terrible.
We have about a 50% chance to get a top 4 pick, give or take. And just a reminder, the Pistons have not moved up in the lottery except for the one time when they moved up to get Cade Cunningham in 2021. In every other draft lottery, the Pistons have either stayed the same or they have fallen after the lottery.
It's terrible.
And this is the weakest draft class in a long, long time, except for Reed Shepherd. Future NBA star Reed Shepherd is in this draft.
Oh, boy.
But, yeah, that's it. That's all we have to look forward to.
I think at the draft party, or whatever you want to call it, wherever they host the draft, Barclays Center or wherever it is this year, I don't know. Pistons fans should just start chanting, "Who cares?" Because last year you saw this major gap, right, between Victor Wembanyama, who's way at the top, and then who was the second overall pick?
Brandon Miller.
Right. Huge gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wembanyama and then everyone else. It's nothing like that this year.
No.
It's all the guys are just bunched right together, and none of them are really any good. So, yeah, it's not going to matter. Like, it'd be great if the Pistons got the number 1 overall pick, but there's no one that you're sitting there drooling at.
Right, and there's so many guys in this draft class that I just don't like as prospects, and except for Reed Shepherd. But I will say this, NBA, take notes, because the WNBA draft, I watched it. It was moving along fast, like real fast. There was a pick, some talk, then pick, then talk, like so fast. And NFL too. Listen here. Adopt whatever the WNBA is doing, because it was a lot more entertaining than what you guys put on for the draft. Is all I'll say.
Wow.
I'll stand on that hill. That's gonna be my final take of the Blue Ski Mask show. The WNBA draft is better than the NBA draft and the NFL draft. So, yeah, that was our final show. We thank you guys for listening all this time. We really appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
Brock, you have any final words before we leave for the last time?
I have 2 final thoughts. 1, remember J.J. McCarthy, Vikings, Super Bowl, book it. Second thought is fire Troy Weaver.
Yes, fire Troy Weaver.
Fire Troy Weaver.
Fire Troy Weaver.
Thank you all so much for listening. We really appreciate it. This has been the Blue Ski Mask Show.